All right, guys, welcome to Idea Market. This is the Facebook Meta announcement recap. We're going to go through and look at some of the key points that were discussed and what was gone over in this presentation. That came out about a week ago, but we've noticed a lot of discussion about it, so we wanted to get into a little more detail. We're going to watch some of it as well. Probably pause it here and there, but a little bit about Idea Market first. If this is your first time actually checking out Idea Market or hearing about us and you're on watching the live stream, we're actually on Discord right now, hanging out with a few guys, and we're going to be going through this. If you're interested, you can click in the link in the description and hop in there. But Idea Market is the credibility layer of the internet. It's a place where your interests can pay you, and you can be part of making lying expensive by joining Idea Market and checking out the different listings that people have and contributing to the system that we're building here. It's a really cool environment, and there's a lot of really interesting deep thinkers on the platform as well as in the Discord right now hanging out, including here with us today is James Elias. James, how you doing, man?
James Ellis. You mean Michael? I'm good, man. I'm good.
All right, so we're gonna just start off by watching this here, the intro, and we'll pause it here and there as we go and talk a little bit about what's going on here. All right. Can you hear it all right?
We always
sounds
ask,
good, man.
where is the future going to take us? But the real question is, where are we going to take the future?
So I've actually watched little bits and parts of this, but I've been waiting to watch the actual full thing here, or the majority of it.
Holy mackerel, this is unbelievable.
We may have brain surgeons in Edinburgh operating on patients in New Zealand.
You'll send emotions, feelings, memories.
Imagine a world where we are represented the way we want to be.
You know, in the future, it just feels like long distance won't be so distant.
There's a big frontier. Where do you want to go?
And we're just getting started.
Appreciate the past, utilize the present, but don't be afraid to create the future.
The future will be made by all of us.
Apparently so. There is something interesting that they actually said just before Zuckerberg gets going. They opened with that woman saying, it's not where the future's going to take us, it's where we're going to take the future, which is like a massive philosophical problem. She solved that problem, which is really a problem that I wrote my actual master thesis on, whether or not we're just being carried somewhere. And I don't know, the implication that somehow humans are have overtaken and they're now fully in control of time in the future and what happens is something I never really can agree with. And I would say metaverse is just another iteration of the future, just like taking us with it and just seeing what happens. Yeah, there was a lot in that start that I'd love to comment on, but I think, let's let Zuckerberg.
We'll let him intro.
I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be mean to Zuckerberg, right? But there is I wonder if they put loads of post-processing effects over this, because I've watched this before, and I genuinely wonder if they've put loads of post-processing effects over it, or if they're at some point they're going to say, by the way, all the people in this were CGI, and it's going to be like some big reveal. Because genuinely everybody in this who's in like with Zuckerberg looks really peculiar, like uncanny, like amazing CGI, but you'll always know it's not real. It's really weird.
Yeah, it is. Definitely looks kind of
Today,
fake.
We're going to talk about the metaverse.
But at the same time,
I want to
really
share
good.
what we imagine is possible. The experiences you'll
If it is
have, the
animation.
creative economy we'll all build,
Except for that.
and the technology that needs to be invented, as well as how we're going to all do this together. The basic story of technology in our lifetimes.
It does say pre-recorded here at the top.
To express ourselves and experience the
Really?
world with ever
Yeah, he had a little thing that said pre-recorded.
Back when I started Facebook, That mostly meant text that we typed on computers. Then we all got phones with cameras, and the internet became much more visual. And recently, as connections got faster, video has become the main way that we experience content. We've gone from desktop to web to phones, from text to photos to video, but this isn't the end of the line. The next platform and medium will be even more immersive, an embodied internet where you're in the experience, not just looking at it. And we call this the metaverse. And you're going to be able to do almost anything you can imagine. Get together with friends and family, work, learn, play, shop, create, as well as entirely new categories that don't really fit how we think about computers or phones today. Now, since we're doing this remotely today, I figured let's make this special. So we've put together something that I think is really going to give you a feeling for what this future could be.
I think that's his actual house.
We believe the metaverse will be the successor to the mobile internet.
You know what I mean?
We'll be able to feel present, like we're right there with people, no matter how far apart we actually are. We'll be able to express ourselves in new, joyful, completely immersive ways.
Is that barbecue sauce?
That's going to unlock a lot of amazing...
Is that barbecue sauce right there?
I think so, with the picture of dogs. It seems like some sort of strange setup that an alien would try to make themselves seem...
They're gonna feel like
you know what's also interesting? I mean, I watched this just after it went live, but like, I'm not sure where this would have gone live. I'm sure like... So yeah, how it definitely would have gone live on all the Facebook channels that they own, right? Like, say, Instagram, WhatsApp accounts, Facebook accounts, like the main big accounts. So let's say there's like at least across all those accounts, like 200 million followers. Yeah, I'd say that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's crazy is this has gone live. This is probably one of their biggest announcements in years. I'm actually pretty bullish on it. I genuinely think that it's going to be taken up because I know the kind of people who use Facebook. I think it's going to become this basically like a new iteration of the economy. But there's only 15,000 people watching. You know, I don't know. That's peculiar to me.
When you play a game with your friends,
I mean, I don't know if that's just
like
this
specific
channel or
world, not just
maybe that. Yeah,
it can't
maybe.
be global. There's no way.
No,
and it's just having started 8 minutes ago. You know,
you're right in the room together.
Yeah,
I think like 15 minutes into it, we'll see probably 30, but that's still so low. Like
at a grid of faces
for Facebook, yeah. Like
for Facebook,
how many people on Facebook is like a billion?
Also goes to show how many people watch live content versus the recording.
Everything we do online
I think it has
connecting socially,
still not a lot.
That's
games, 240,000.
It's going to be more natural and vivid. This isn't about spending more time on screens. It's about making the time that we already spend better. Screens
on like the biggest
just
social
can't
media
convey
platform in the
full
world.
Range of human expression and connection. They can't deliver that deep feeling of presence. But the next version of the internet can. That's what we should be working towards. Technology that's built around people and how we actually experience the world and interact with each other. That's what the metaverse is all about.
That says a lot, though. That sort of says this is a thing that I think a lot of people probably don't think about with Facebook and Twitter is that they're part of they're so enamored in it. Facebook is like Coca-Cola. You can't imagine a world without it. You don't even really think of the main structure, the main company actually doing things anymore. Right? They might as well not exist. You're like, yeah, there's always going to be Facebook. Like, you don't even need to mention but I guess the proof is in the pudding about the fact that people have to mention the negative. Right? The negative is more surprising when people say, "I'm not on Facebook." Like they have to make that clear.
Right.
That's how big they've become. It's sort of like saying, like, "I don't drink Coke," right? Or I don't know, something along those lines. You know, I'm not on social media. Like the negative is the thing you have to mention.
That. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is
experience it yourself.
Crazy.
But it's a little tough because it doesn't fully exist yet. Some of the basic building blocks are here though, and others are starting to emerge as we speak. We're starting to get a sense of how it could all come together and what it could feel like. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. Rather than just focusing on this year's products like a normal keynote, we're going to talk about the future. So let's start by exploring what different kinds of metaverse experiences could feel like, starting with the most important experience of all, connecting with people.
Okay, so was that whole room meant to be CGI? Is that the point he's trying to make? Like everything we just saw was fake?
Put on your glasses.
I guess. I mean,
maybe.
Instantly in your home space. It has parts of your physical home recreated virtually. It has things.
So this just to pause it here. This is when I sort of realized the importance of it all in terms of the new economy. If you genuinely get VR technology, which has like obviously the sight, like in terms of our senses, the sight one is the one which we won't have too much trouble with, it seems, of making everything like seriously incredibly graphically amazing to the point where your brain might not be able to tell the difference, right? I think we're fairly close to that.
Right.
And sound, we've pretty much mastered that in terms of like, I don't know, surround sound, whatever.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, if you can genuinely get to a point where like you have gloves, which I don't think we're particularly far off, where there's that genuine resistance on things, and possibly like there's one room in your house which is the VR room, and you get to the point where like objects in VR, like that thing behind him and that suit of Roman armor and blah blah blah. That was when I realized, like, in terms of like the combination of metaverse and NFTs, which they're doing immediately on launch, is like that's when it would become the next economy. That's when, if you're in VR and it's just almost just as real as regular life, and you're in it possibly for many people more time than you're in AR, actual reality, then that is when that switch would begin to be flipped. It would genuinely be worth your time in terms of value to like try earn, that object that's behind him or that suit of armor.
Right.
And it I don't know, there's a strange thing where
it's going to be a weird transition.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like you do almost like some sort of strange digital apartheid, where there's just people who, I don't know, you go out into the world and people are in the shop, and you could begin to notice like, oh look, that's a VR, that's a VR person.
Right.
But you say to someone like, oh, I haven't seen you for a while. It's like, oh, I'm mostly VR
I've been
now.
yeah. Well, the thing is, the scary thing is, there's people that I know who are like that already, and they're not even in VR. They're just doing it in standard 2D games, but they'll grind for weeks and weeks and months, and you'll never see them, and then they'll just resurface and be like, oh yeah, I made a couple $1,000 IRL money just from grinding in these video games. Like, what do you?
Yeah, and exactly. But once
you can't argue with them because they're making money. They're like, oh yeah, but I made money. I mean, I'm working.
That exactly, and once that flip happens, that's what I'm saying is that digital world, which we then considered to not have value, suddenly takes on all the serious implications of the real world, right? It's like if someone's like, well, literally, I know quite a few people who've said like, look, that I earn more money grinding in video games or like, doing stuff in VR or in digital world. They literally earn more. AR is then improved, but they end up spending however much unions and breaks and things like that. Like, you have to then take that. I wonder when the point is, gonna where you just like, if you were to think about it, like, the next practical stage of these things is like, if you need to think of jobs which people really don't like doing. So it's like people doing retail jobs from home. Like you have a VR headset and it's set up to something in a genuine retail shop. But I don't know how that would work. But that just seems, I don't know. It's crazy. I mean, or possibly even like a VR trucker. Imagine that. Like, we have these self-drive trucks, but they might say, look, we don't actually need someone in the cab, but we need someone to watch it like all day just to make sure like the potential mistake. Imagine that for a job.
That would be more painful than actually driving a truck. I know people who pay to play Truck Simulator. And this is what I wonder all the time. I'm like, well, what if you were just actually driving the truck or driving a truck in VR that was controlling a real truck? I mean, they spend so much time.
Amazing.
Yeah, and they're not making money, they're paying money to do it. They're doing the opposite.
That phenomenon amazes me though. I mean, what do you think is behind that? Because I know a lot of people who like, they'll go to work, come home, and then their leisure time is like 8 hours on Euro Truck Simulator.
Yeah.
No, maybe not 8 hours, but like their leisure time after they've done everything else is like, right, I'm going to sit down and drive the long haul trucking route from, wherever to wherever, and like that's their enjoyment.
Somehow that's more enjoyable for them than their normal job. Like somehow, okay, there's actually a gas station simulator now where you can.
I saw that.
You spend hours and hours just making your gas station better and better and better, and I don't understand that. I can't get behind that. I'm like, my time that I do have when I'm not working feels too valuable to go back to work in a digital world.
Yeah, and not, but then this is the interesting thing, right? Isn't it? Because once that flip happens, all of a sudden, that's the weird thing we're talking about, is that transition where it's like, well, hang on, is it genuinely valuable now? Like, if someone in the metaverse creates a gas station that people really want to visit because it's so authentic or something, and they've got products there which are NFTs that, like, if you go there as your digital character and you pick up this digital product and you scan it, then that it is worth that person's time to do it. But that weird transition of, like, the meeting of, and also that symptom of, if such an economy takes off even to a scale of, let's say, 1 in 10, right? It affects like 1 in 10 jobs. You have to remember that 1/10 of all people who are in a physical economy will no longer be there. And one of the side effects that I think is unforeseen of VR is that a lot of small towns will just collapse because it will be like a weird horror town.
Yeah.
Everyone's just in their houses
Everyone
all
will
day.
be inside. Why would you want to go to your gas station down the road when you can go to a VR gas station that's 10 times better and get something really cool that then it'll appreciate in value, and you'll be able to sell it.
Exactly. Yeah. And then maybe they'll end up being called like VR towns.
Interesting. Let's keep going here a little bit.
Incredibly inspiring view of whatever you find most.
That's not real. That isn't.
Yeah. Hey, are you coming?
But it looks so real.
Just gotta find something to wear.
See, I wonder if avatars will look more like that or more like Mark looks now.
Oh, hey, Mark. Hey, what's going on?
Hi.
What's up, Mark?
Whoa, we're floating in space? Who made this place? It's awesome.
Right? It's from the crater I met in LA.
This place is amazing.
Boz, is that you?
Of course it's me. You know I had to be the robot, man.
I thought I was supposed to be the robot.
Whoa.
I knew you were bluffing.
Have you seen Ready Player One?
Naomi.
Let's call her.
Naomi.
Yeah. I nowadays I don't think Ready Player One is far off the mark.
Sorry, I'm running late, but you've got to see what we're checking out.
Eerily close to what's happening now.
Hiding AR pieces for people to find.
Is there a problem with the fact that, like,
3D street art?
There's no real value in this stuff? Does that bother anyone?
Well, this is what we were discussing, though, is like that
NFTs.
question.
Yeah, sorry, I just jumped it. Well, yeah, like that's NFTs, I think. Okay, so this is...
Everything will eventually probably basically be an NFT, right? Like you buy something at a gas station in VR, it's going to be an NFT.
And you just say, like, have you got any more of them? And you said, there's 100 left now.
So,
and then, like, yeah, when you scan that last one, like, they're just gone.
It.
Okay, so let's... Basically, the central hypothesis of Idea Market is that things that are actually valuable stay valuable over time, and things that are not decrease in value, right? So my theory with, and this is my major complaint with Bitcoin, is that the value of Bitcoin is not in Bitcoin itself. The value in Bitcoin is in the creation of the market and belief in the technology, right? Creation of the network and developing all that stuff. That's the value. So I personally predict, maybe depending on how close people's actual opinions are to reality itself, that when all the Bitcoin is mined, Bitcoin will eventually start decreasing in value, right? Whereas like NFTs right now, the value in NFTs is that the technology is important, but a lot of the NFTs that are hyperinflated to ridiculous prices are actually fucking worthless, and it's purely desire that's driving the value, not utility, right? Obviously, there are things in the market that have no utility and desire value, like luxury things. There are some watches in the world that are really cool, but are not superior to a phone, but it's a status symbol, right? But that's a niche in what the general watch market, which is like, hey, this watch tells time. And even though that market's probably suffered because everyone has a phone now, right? So my thought is, Ready Player One, I don't see that happening in reality, because I think that, for example, in, where is it? Venezuela, RuneScape and World of Warcraft currency is worth more than their currency, but that's not because it's worth money. It's because it's worth money to people in locations with more stable currencies, and Venezuelan currency is actually just de facto worthless, right?
That's a really interesting point. They're basically grinding for currency that you can't create any more of it unless you put in the physical work to do movement with your character in this game, right? Like you need to actually move around, you need to go places and do
things. More of
things.
their time to be in a game.
Right. It's worth more of their time to do that than to go down and work at a gas station.
But that's so I think the mistake is that people look at that as in itself as the microcosm is, oh, Venezuelan currency is not worth it, so the RuneScape currency or the World of Warcraft currency is. But it's not about that. It's that Venezuelan currency is worthless relative to other currencies. And so to people for whom, say, Americans who have the luxury money to spend on bullshit like I'm going to buy World of Warcraft gold with real money, right? The existence of a more stable market, it's simply the fact that there's a luxury market tangential to a stable market that is more valuable than an unstable market, right? So it's not if Venezuela existed in a vacuum, there would be no market for World of Warcraft currency, right? People in Venezuela are not saying, hey, let's spend our Venezuelan dollars on World of Warcraft money. They're saying, hey, let's put our time into getting this money that people who for this is a luxury for them, they're going to pay for it, right? Similarly, I can't imagine any universe where in Venezuela, if Venezuela existed in a vacuum, people be like, oh, NFTs are better than having food on the table. But there happen to be people in America who have such a degree of luxury that they can waste millions of dollars on stupid bullshit pictures of monkeys and shit, right? But in the realm of people with extreme abundance, that seems like a valid thing to do because there's, nobody's trying to figure out, oh, do I buy this chimp or do I buy food?
All right. Well, here's the theory that I'd posit here, that it's about, once again, me and Sam were talking about like the moment reality begins to flip. So, like for instance, with the NFT craze at the moment, basically what's behind a lot of investing in crypto at the moment, unfortunately for crypto such as Bitcoin, is that there is obviously the idea that if you buy this, it will go up in value, right? So that is proof that people are still primarily reliant on USD or fiat currencies, because they're saying, right, if I buy Bitcoin, this will go up in value in a currency which is really important to me. But I would say that currency is important to them because they can buy property, they can buy physical assets, right? So the physical world is still a priority, because you're like, if I buy this in time, I'll be able to get more physical stuff, land, property, etc. The point that me and Sam we're somewhat making is that, like, well, what happens when VR possibly takes off to such a degree, or the metaverse takes off to such a degree that you go, hang on, I'm spending more time in VR than AR, and then all of a sudden your reality flips and you're thinking, well, actually, it's worth more for me. The value is actually higher for me to have the objects in VR. That then becomes your reality because you're there more. There may very well be in the future people who literally don't take off their headsets.
Right. Okay. So yes, I would agree with the caveat, and this is the thing I haven't heard people talk about yet, is people think monolithic thing. So in Ready Player One, you have both the guy who lives in the junkyard doing the shit, as well as the CEO of that fucking company doing the shit. That's the mistake. That's the mistake. What will happen, because there has to be a real world value that is tangent. This is all tangential to that. So what is almost certainly going to happen versus Ready Player One, which I think is almost impossible, is 90% of the world ends up living in VR, while the people who are adept at functioning in reality live in the real world and have all the nice shit in reality, right? So it's going to be people have been presented with this choice for basically all of human history in some capacity, which is, do you choose to live in maybe not all of human history, but certainly in modern times, do you choose to live in the comfortable illusion, or do you deal with reality itself, right? For example, do I live in the illusion that I will have long-term security if I go to school and get an office job and a pension and my social security and all of that? And that is literally false. Whether or not it works out, it's false because you have no guarantee of that. And so the trade-off that people continue to choose to make, and it seems like people make this continually at scale, like most people will make this choice because they do, is, hey, am I going to go live a super exciting life, or am I going to watch it on TV or Netflix or a video game or whatever. And they outsource the adventure of life to a controlled environment where there's no risk, right? So I tend to agree with you in that regard, but I think it will be that there will be a class of people that can deal with an insanely chaotic world, and the vast majority of people who choose not to, right? Whether or not, how much of a choice that is, if you're raised in a junkyard playing a game that's awesome and your life sucks, it's hard to imagine, consciously making the choice to go deal with the real world. But that's ultimately always the choice. And that's the same choice that drives people towards entrepreneurship or towards, a political movement or whatever, right? The
So
difference
when
is,
does VR become more real? That's the question.
I
Or
would
is it
say,
never? Would you say it's never can become someone's genuine reality?
what you're talking about. So if I'm a TikTok kid and I get more attention on TikTok than I do in the real world, it's already there, right? It's just a matter of scale. If somebody spends most of their free time watching Netflix, it's already there. It's just not as interactive as it could be, right? And so you could see, like for Netflix, where they did that Black Mirror episode that was a VR, or you could choose your own adventure shit. That was a big deal. But games had that the whole time. So it's obvious that it's more likely that games are a medium suited towards people feeling a sense of agency. And where people will gravitate towards is what gives them some sense of agency or importance, right? So TikTok is notable because even a shit video can get tons of likes because their algorithm is designed to make, everything get some degree of views and popularity. So TikTok gives you more agency than, say, Instagram, where if you don't have a giant plastic ass or a nice car, then you're not going to be as successful, right? So we're going to keep moving in the direction of what gives the sense of agency or importance to the most people at the lowest amount of effort. And so people choose, I'd rather have my video game avatar be famous than actually go get some kind of importance in the real world because it's easier, right? The value prop is higher. And so I don't know. That's ultimately the word, it's what the Peter principle, Michael principle, unto Matthew principle, something like that. Him who hath, more will be given. Him who hath not, all will be taken away. Is that everyone chooses all the time to go in the direction of reality or not. And it gets easier and easier and easier to move away from reality as time goes on, right? Because it's appealing and people want that. People don't want to deal with reality. And we can say that people do, and we can hope that people do, but we can prove demonstrably that actually most of them don't, right? And so by the existence of the vast majority of people who will choose to abdicate their own ability to deal with reality, that by necessity creates either aristocratic or oligarchic ruling classes that will then deal with reality on their behalf. Because guess what? If you have a guy that studied geopolitics and knows how to avoid getting airstriked by Syrians or something, I don't know, and a guy who doesn't do research when he goes to the polls, that the net number of decisions that lead you in one direction or the other are going to reflect by this guy has a really nice house and cool stuff in real life, and this guy lives in a VR trailer, right? Because reality rewards you for thinking, but it's also hard to do. It's a difficult thing.
If the technology of VR catches up though to the point where your senses know no different, even your physical senses, then someone living in a box could literally be living in a mansion. And if it was to the point where there is no way to tell the difference, that's when things start to get spooky, man.
Well, because then the thing is, we can go off some premises here, which would be, let's imagine we're already there, right?
All right.
That's a possibility. But from just heuristically, there's no way to say, okay, you could take there. I can give you, let's say, 3 scenarios that are equally as valid as that, which would be A, this is Gnostic hell, right? This is an illusion. And you're stuck and there's no way out, or you chose to be here, or maybe you could go meditate and get out of here, right? B, this is some kind of Buddhist illusion, right? Okay, cool, same thing. C, this is a simulation that you're in. All 3 of those are equally provably true, right? Meaning you can't prove any of them true. They're all as likely or unlikely as any of them, right? People have wrote about this shit forever anyway, so it's entirely possible this is already the case. But because you can't prove it, there's no actually negative utility to living your life in such a way as if this were true, then it is not a functional strategy for living in the world, right? So we, as our basic premise, should assume that reality is real, because we can debate whether reality is real or not, but if I shoot you in the kidney right now, you're probably not going to be debating whether it's real, right? The reality is more concerned with being real than it is with your opinions about it. So a person with a gunshot wound is it's very unlikely they're going to be debating the metaphysics of their gunshot wound, right? They're like, oh, pain is an illusion. This is a simulation. Bleeding, coughing up blood, right? So it's particular.
How does that tie into the
is,
metaverse?
Well, what I'm saying is our ability to believe in lies is enabled by our distance from the consequences of reality, right?
Yeah, fair.
Well, okay. Say you have this perfect simulation of stuff, and you get all your senses and everything are completely convinced. You starve to death, right? So it doesn't matter how convincing it is.
I'd say we don't even need the perfect simulation to do that, though. I mean, there's been very minor, but there's been at least like 3 or 4 reports of people quite literally dying because they haven't been able to bring themselves away from games. And like the amount of hours people put into like GTA Online, right? So like that, I would say, is proof enough. Or World of Warcraft, for instance, that's proof enough that we don't need the perfect simulation. I would just say that that's going to be the extra step, which makes it more difficult for more people. To your average person,
right? But I would say let's draw a line, because there are 2 different problems here, which would be a perfect simulation that you cannot separate from reality is its own issue. Whereas a 99% or lower simulation is the thing that we should be talking about. Because when you get into the 100% perfect simulation, we get into problems of Gnosticism and simulation universe and stuff. And we can just say, like I said, it's as likely that we're doing that right now as any other version of that. And if that is true, it doesn't really matter, because how do you unplug? You can't like reach back and pull the fucking plug out of your head, right? So if that's the case, I don't know what we do about it. Maybe the Gnostics did, maybe Buddha did. I don't know. But for the sake of the practical version of this argument, we're going to rule that out, because it's possible and it's worth considering. But that is something you should go figure out yourself. And also then you could ask the questions like, why do they always kill the Gnostics? Why do they kill the Cathars, right? different question. That's a deep, like dark metaphysical debate to engage in. So if we're talking about a simulation that could be real enough to be entertaining, but not real enough to mess with your ability to know what is genuinely real, like you still could know, oh, I'm going to put the headset on and have a great time and get like a neurally convincing synthetic android blowjob or something, right? Okay, that's different. But if you could do that, then it's about your choice to live in the real world or not, rather than are you actually living in the real world or not, which is, I would say, that's an important discussion, but is very, very unrelated to that, because we're nowhere near that, or we're already in it.
I think the constraints of this, first of all, I must apologize, guys. I thought the stream was at 7 p.m. GMT. My apologies. But the constraints of this false reality have been created by a team of experts and delivered with a smile, right? So it's like when you manifest these surroundings around yourself, when you probably have to pay for whatever upgrades that are included in these surroundings, everything that you're enjoying and you take for granted has been preconditioned, pre-coded, and it's kind of delivered with a smile, in a sense. I remember I saw the broadcast, and Zuckerberg was talking about how updating your avatar was very much just like wearing a new tie or getting a tattoo, or something like this. But just as you were saying, separation between reality and this sort of fake reality is that you create your avatar, which is sufficient for your work face, but your body is literally putrefying inside your own house, right? It's like there is a direct paradox there that seems to be completely very both simultaneously obvious and pasted over with a smile that's just taken for granted. I think it reflects a larger problem that's perhaps been lost. It's just the avatar, it's almost as if it's won. You know what I mean? It's not even fought against. It's just delivered with a smile. Was my impression.
Yeah, I
So-
think.
I hate to act the discussion up, but shall we continue watching a little bit
Yeah,
more
yeah.
and see
Roll
what
it,
else?
roll it on a bit.
All right, rolling it.
That's cool.
Send that link over so we can all look at it. This is stunning.
Dude, that is something.
That's awesome. Wow.
I love the movement.
Wait, it's disappearing.
This is amazing.
Hold on. I'll tip the artist and they'll extend it.
Wow.
I'm gonna
You guys
pay
like
to
it
look
here?
at this
I
first.
have never been
I'm gonna tip the artist. Make it bigger. Make it bigger.
Huh, let's see.
Koi fish that fly? That's new.
This is wild. Hey, one sec, pause. It's Priscilla.
Hey, you have to see this. Beast is going crazy.
Oh, I love that guy. We've got to show
Hi,
that to the
but
kids.
can that dog
Can you
fly
also send
around?
that to my dad?
I love the fact, right, that like even even in their promo material, he's presented them with like, what is this? Some amazing aquarium where like probably rare fish are floating in front of your face, and even in VR, he's admitting that he gets distracted. You know, you've got this beautiful handmade aquarium, and he's like, "Oh, hang on, my friend's sending me a video of their dog." Right? He's
In real life.
he's already bored. Yeah, in real life. In real life.
Oh.
I mean, but that did make me think of one like key use of this, where I thought, actually, you know what, that'd be genuinely really useful. Let's say, for instance, like you're learning something. I mean, you're learning about like how to, I don't know, I don't know even what you call them, like a marine ecologist or something like that. And if you could get a piece of technology which could genuinely scan seabeds like to complete detail and be like, look, we can't go down there all that often because it's a massive cost, but we have this VR simulation which is 1-to-1 scale and everything is hyper detailed. That's that's an amazing technology. Same with like, I don't know, learning to be a mechanic, and they're like, we've scanned in every single car from 1970 with every single detailed component, and you can work on them without completely messing things up. That's that's an amazing tool, but it doesn't seem like that's what they're actually doing with
They
it.
have those tools though. They have I'm blanking on the name of the app now, but they literally scan in for educational purposes all these different like engines, like jet engines. They'll take them all and you can go in and explode the whole view. Or like I've gone inside of a human heart and looked at all the different details of the veins. Like you can't get that detail very easily without a microscope or some other enhanced equipment, but you can do it with VR.
Okay, so you illustrated a really important point with that, is that when you use technology as a tool, it's doing the right thing. When people make technology an end in itself, right? That's where you fuck up. And so we currently, this is the biggest example of this not being done correctly is with cell phones. Cell phones are the best tool in the world today, bar none. You straight up cannot do anything as conveniently everywhere as you can with a phone. A phone is a tool, is the ultimate tool belt type thing. You can carry it in a pocket. It does fucking everything in the world, right? But when we turn into an end in themselves, meaning, oh, we want, Facebook and their incentive structure, Instagram, YouTube, whatever, we want you to continuously consume content instead of caring about what the utility of that content is. That's where we fucked up. And so again, we have these competing drives, which is, how can I use this thing to better my position in the world? Hey, I'm going to buy a badass phone because I can make content. I can run a business. I can take transactions. I can, measure shit. It does crazy stuff now, right? It's a compass. Or I'm going to use this phone as a thing to avoid reality with, right? That is our distinction here. And most people are probably going to go in one direction. And that's partially the fault of designers because they make phones addictive. But if one of the things I used to do this, I don't do it anymore. I did it for a long time, was I put my phone on grayscale because it makes it less addictive. I did that for a while and I kind of got a handle on my phone usage. I don't just mindlessly scroll as much anymore. But
crazy, I've done that before. It's amazing how just no color, you're like, I'm bored.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that's the thing. Then you look into Facebook. There's a reason why Facebook and Twitter are blue, because blue is soothing and it lulls you into a sense of security. Whereas like YouTube, which is red, is like watch, right? So that's the thing. It's just manipulative. The way that people build these platforms is totally manipulative. But you have to remember, like, Zuck is a guy who started Facebook by making a hot or not app, right? Like he is not He's not some paragon of ethics. He is a dude that is like, his first thing was like, I'm going to objectify people. And then what did he make? The world's largest platform for literally turning people into advertising metrics, right? Go fucking figure. Why is anyone surprised that the guy who started out with Hot or Not now has everybody's picture in the world and is ranking you based on how much you're going to give an advertiser money, right? Like, surprise.
Message him.
All right, see you at home. This place is great, Boz, but there's something I got to get back to. All right, so that's a glimpse of a few ways that we're going to be able to get together and socialize in the metaverse. It's a ways off, but you can start to see some of the fundamental building blocks take shape. First, the feeling of presence. This is the defining quality of the metaverse. You're going to really feel like you're there with other people. You'll see their facial expressions, you'll see their body language, maybe figure out if they're actually holding a winning hand. All the subtle ways that we communicate that today's technology can't quite deliver. Next, there are avatars, and that's how we're going to represent ourselves in the metaverse. Avatars will be as common as profile pictures today, but instead of a static image, they're going to be living 3D representations of you. Your expressions, your gestures, that are going to make interactions much richer than anything that's possible online today. You'll probably have a photorealistic avatar for work, a stylized one for hanging out, and maybe even a fantasy one for gaming. You're going to have a wardrobe of virtual clothes for different occasions, designed by different creators and from different apps and experiences. Importantly, you should be able to bring your avatar and digital items across different apps and experiences in the metaverse. Beyond avatars, there is your home space. You're going to be able to design it to look the way you want, maybe put up your own pictures and videos and store your digital goods. You're going to be able to invite people over, play games, hang out.
How do you think we could, not we, but like generally people could undermine the metaverse by the way they create their home space? You know what I mean? Like, obviously he's advertising it as this like friendly, like, look at my cool alchemical oven and my cool like tropical island and aquarium. You join someone's home space, and what if it's just like, oh man, this is miserable? What if everyone did that?
Yeah, like a sort of, it could be like a Benisake sort of party where you come to someone's space and everything that you customize it with, or a link to some kind of social mishap you made in the past. You can actually create like a room of references for someone, like a sort of social torture dungeon.
Oh boy.
Oh my
abusive in
God.
that way.
You shouldn't have used your old Facebook account. Like every drawer they open goes back to like, a 2008 album.
An old post. Remember 2 years ago when you were in that terrible relationship?
That would be, imagine, that's like some Black Mirror kind of prison thing. Like, imagine if you just put someone in a virtual prison where they just had to relive their crimes over and over again,
That's my favorite Black Mirror episode.
That was a really good one. I stopped watching it because it's so fucking miserable, but that is a good show.
You'll also even have a home office.
You want me to keep pausing it?
I was gonna, what was it gonna say? I think the kicker is that you're just gonna, like, people are just gonna program their own shit, and then I just don't think Facebook gets it, because their advertising based incentive guarantees whatever they come up with is going to be miserable. But augmented Facebook is more disturbing than whatever this bullshit they're peddling. Like, Facebook plus more addictive VR features is the thing that scares me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel there's something we're overlooking. You know that I don't know, there must be a name for this principle, but when people create something and they don't foresee the thing which later on is the biggest thing for it, right? Like Instagram, we created it for
Black Swan.
Yeah, sort of a Black Swan, but like Instagram, they created Instagram for photography, and it's basically become, I don't know, like is it really anything to do with photography anymore? Like, not at all.
Not really.
It's okay. So let's imagine. Okay, so if every social media has an optimized form of content. On Twitter, this is a very specific way of writing your tweets, right? This is hi, line break. I'm about to talk about blah, blah, blah. Line break. Here's a thread, thread. And they're formatted in that very specific voice. James, you definitely know what I'm talking about. Reddit has this where it's like there's a fucking specific nerd voice that gets you gold if you do it, right? There's on Tumblr, it's that like kind of bitchy Tumblr post that's very woke. On Instagram, it's pictures of asses, right? And like e-girls. So let's imagine, what is the most compelling of content in VR, and is it not VR porn? Like, let's imagine.
Start with video. What's the most compelling video? It's like quick, right? It's like not many videos hold your attention anymore, right? So it's videos that understand, like, they keep like next thing.
Right.
So VR, what's compelling video?
You have those triggered videos with the caption sort of taking your hand through this video, where you're just going to see some kind of, like, cat petting a pigeon at the end of it or something, but it kind of captions it with little sentences. And despite the fact it infantilizes you, it still gets you from the beginning to the end. That's what it's designed for. That seems to
Maybe that's what they're all doing. Is it's what is the thing in each medium which makes you go, I need to see this through to the end.
I think with VR,
you know what I mean?
It's the engagement and interaction. In VR, you're actually able to click and feel and move around and be part of it. So I think that's, with VR content, at least, that's where I see it going, is the more you're able to participate in whatever's already created. So if you're making a video, the more ways you can make for people to click or interact or be part of that video while it's playing. I mean, that's the whole point. Why would I not watch it in 2D if I could?
Maybe it will be people who can create the most authentic atmospheric spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you look at like Clubhouse or Twitter Spaces, it's all about like who's talking, who's in there. If someone can curate, like a VR club that's just constantly banging, you go there and you're just like, man, this feels like you're really part of a club. You turn your head and in front of you is some guy from Twitter who you've been talking to for years, and there he is.
I think one of the things that honestly, what people will do as soon as you remove, it's the same. Look at the same thing that happens in Facebook comments, YouTube comments, right? People are disgusting. I think is it Socrates that has the ring, the invisibility ring? If you had this, everyone would be completely immoral in like a week. I think people are going to want to do disgusting shit, like simulated violence, all kinds of really things that they normally wouldn't do, or it's rather that they would do but can't because of the constraints of reality, right?
Right.
How do you think that slippery slope starts?
We already have that with violent games. Like, for example, what I would tell you, the one thing that I would personally love to do in VR, because it'd be useful in two directions, is like if you had a really good fantasy game where I could actually learn how to sword fight or like fist fight, or a game where I had like a rifle and could practice shooting while I was in the game, where it was like a real world transferable skill. I would do that all day. I think that would be so much fun. I could like work out. You could
in VR.
Right.
Things like sword fighting, it's just be incredible, because that's just in every day, like that's impractical. I don't know where I could go.
It's a workout. I would find it engaging in and of itself, because I always wanted to learn how to do it, but I don't have a great.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm saying. Is like, I don't like, where am I going to go to learn sword fighting and also do it enough to be able to like actually learn it?
That's what I'm saying. So if I could do that, I would be straight up. I would do like 3 hours a day of sword fighting or shooting or whatever, like that, archery, all that kind of stuff, because it'd be really, really cool and useful. I am probably not the normal person here, because a lot of people would probably like be acceptable with Minecraft level. So there's a game called Mord House, which is like a hyper realistic night simulator game where you have to do like you have to change the angle that you're swinging at. You could parry and do a riposte and all kinds of weird techniques. It's extremely hard. I basically never killed anyone. I played it for like an hour because it's so hard to do. That sort of thing is probably not going to appeal to most people. Most people will be okay with, oh, I have a big club and everyone I hit dies kind of stuff. So I don't know that necessarily the most entertaining thing would be a physically demanding exercise. Look at Wii Fit. Wii Fit was a novelty. People actually don't want to work out that much when they're playing games. They just want dopamine. But that sort of stuff would lead into, okay, so what'll happen is people will make a surgery simulator where it's for doctors and stuff. But what that creates is, photorealistic, anatomically correct people right? There are
Mm.
already people working on the sex robots and stuff. So then you're going to have somebody combine the surgery simulator with the sex simulator. And now there's like gruesome, horrific things happening there that I will let you imagine because I don't want to. So it's when we have things that are uniquely useful in and of themselves, but you combine them in shit ways. That's where the bad stuff comes in. So imagine you have a photorealistic beating people to death simulator, right? Or a photorealistic mob violence simulator, right? Or photorealistic, like, hey, play a game where you're the Taliban fighting America, right? That's where things get really weird.
GTA, I mean, Grand Theft Auto. I mean, they made a whole game about like Grand Theft Auto, the act of stealing people's cars, and it became like a major hit. And it's still a huge hit.
like
Like
you were
whole
saying earlier,
worlds of people just committing atrocities, and then they dress it up, but it's essentially built around the idea of just being able to not be constrained by reality's limitations. You can take whatever car you want, and you just rip somebody out and beat them up, throw them on the ground, take their money, run them over, take their purse.
I think I think the virtual world is very, very similar to the way that thought works in a person, right? Every single person in the world has thought of things they would never do in real life. The reason why thought exists is because it allows you to try things out in your head and then decide if you're going to do them or not, right? Now, there are people who are not yet serial killers who think about things and then they try them out on small animals or birds or something, right? That leads people to become more and more serial killery, right? I'd imagine that it's no different than this stuff, but I wonder whether it wouldn't be correlation rather than causation. Unless you have like a simulator that allows you to simulate like the fucking police movements on the block so you can go rob a store and get away with it. Like that would be, pretty premeditated in that regard. But I think that it looks like people are getting less violent. I think having these outlets for things that people are already going to think about, and then maybe they engage in it. But I don't know. That's the question. If people do things in a virtual reality, are they more or less likely to do it in real life? Right? Because if I go into virtual reality and crash a spaceship, I'm probably not going to do that in real life.
I think it depends on the regulation, like you say. This is coming from Facebook. It seems right now they're the gatekeepers of this world. And I think that you're right. If people had a natural choice, then the movement would kind of homogenize what, like, internet entertainment, for example, gaming, but also pornography and various other like avenues people find on the internet. This would kind of homogenize them all together. But Facebook are the arbiters of this, aren't they? And GTA is San Andreas, I think, is going to be playable through this portal. He mentions in this particular broadcast, which is incredible because, as you mentioned, you murder people, Grand Theft Auto, solicit prostitutes, this kind of thing. So there's going to be a downgraded form of that. But its essential core is violence, but that's so normalized now. It's something that people. I mean, we're all raised on shoot 'em ups, right? It's just, as I mentioned before, all of this is delivered with a smile. So I think that they're going to be walking a tightrope balance between providing what's normalized through the internet, which is violence, but also being very clever about how much they give us and how strictly securely policed it is. Which leads me on to privacy as well, because I think that another major part of this cast is Zuckerberg, but also Nick Clegg, James.
Really?
The ex-leader of the Lib Dems is responsible for their, I think, public affairs and various other things. So there's a section of this cast with Nick Clegg talking about, addressing him very naturally, of course, about the privacy of Facebook. He goes, "Well, Mark, I'm just interrupting you. Sorry, to talk about the privacy of Facebook." But I guess I'm moving on to that because it seems even if they could securely tell us that we would be private through this use, I would never really believe it. Because
No.
the AR element, right? Because you have this little clicker, and the technology would allow you to look at something and then access it because you're accessing it naturally, and then you click, so you might turn your TV on or whatever. But that allows them to measure your offline and online life, and all they're doing is giving you a promise that you're entirely secure. So I don't think I would ever be happy with that, but I don't think it's necessarily escapable either, which is kind of a bit scary.
Right, I got to head, Sam and Garrett and Matt. It's been fun.
Yeah, I should probably also go.
But we could probably do.
I'm sorry for jumping in late there, guys. I thought
Sam,
it was
we could probably do another session on this, considering we only got is that 1/6 of the way through?
Yeah.
We could this definitely. Is great.
I enjoyed this format. I think it led to some really interesting discussion. We can end the stream now, and then we'll hop back on it next week and do another panel discussion. Have these guys in here. And if you're watching on the live stream or the restream, then you guys can hop in the Discord at ideamarket.io/Discord and be part of the conversation as well.
Cool. See you guys.
Cool. Later, y'all.
All right, guys. Cheers.